Time now to connect the dots. When we make the news make sense. All right, get ready for what will be a big debate over just how much red meat we all eat. Scientists have drafted new guidelines on how much red meat is recommended for Americans. Let's connect the dots. The new guidelines from the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee would recommend Americans limit how much red meat they eat. It's part of a growing effort to get people to eat more plant foods and plant-based proteins. So, why the change? Scientists have long warned the cholesterol and fat in red meat can raise the risk of cardiovascular disease. Current guidelines recommend avoiding too much saturated fat, but don't go as far.
They smile as they hand you the plate. Juicy, sizzling, delicious. But behind the scenes, it's rot, chemicals, and deception. Every bite you take in these restaurants comes laced with secrets they pray you'll never uncover. Because if you knew what that meat really was, if you knew how it got to your plate, you'd never eat there again. How many meals have you swallowed in blind trust while they cashed in on your ignorance? The pink slime lie, it looks like beef. It even smells like beef. But it's not. What you're biting into at some of the biggest fast food chains in America isn't real meat. It's industrial waste dressed up as dinner. They call it lean, finely textured beef. Sounds harmless, even healthy. But behind that clean label is a stomach-turning truth. This meat filler is made from fatty trimmings swept up from slaughterhouse floors, mechanically separated, and then blasted with ammonia gas to kill bacteria. Yes, ammonia. The same stuff used in cleaning supplies. For years, this concoction was quietly pumped into burgers, tacos, meatballs, all stamped 100% beef. Parents fed it to their kids. Teens grabbed it on the go. And every bite delivered more of what experts now warn could be a gut-damaging, hormone-disrupting, inflammation-triggering disaster. And here's the kicker. Even when the scandal broke. Over a decade ago, many fast food giants never closed on it. Some simply changed suppliers. Others lobbied to keep it going. The USDA still allows it. The FDA still says it's safe with small amounts. But what they won't tell you is that small amounts can help, especially when millions are eating it daily. Recent whispers from food scientists have raised darker concerns. They're looking into links between ammonia-treated meat and cognitive issues in children, behavioral problems, disruption in gut-brain signals. Imagine your child's mood swings being traced back to a cheap burger. Imagine feeding them toxins because a billion-dollar brand cut corners and don't think you can spot it on the label. Pink slime doesn't come with a warning. It's folded into meat blends, reshaped into patties, and served with a side of marketing that you're not eating real food. You're eating a chemical sponge, soaked in denial and deep-fried in corporate greed. But if you think that's disgusting, wait until you find out what they're doing to your chicken. Fried chicken chains, chlorine chicken on the menu. The smell of crispy fried chicken is enough to make anyone hungry. But what if that golden crust was hiding something far more sinister than grease? In the United States, fried chicken chains are legally allowed to serve poultry that's been soaked. Yes, soaked in chlorine, not rinsed, not sprayed. Submerged in chemical baths meant to sanitize filthy carcasses. Why? Because the conditions these birds are raised in are so grotesque, the industry has to disinfect the filth after the fact. We're talking about chickens raised shoulder to shoulder in windowless barns, standing in their own waste, feathers burned off by ammonia fumes, lungs scorched by dust and feces. By the time they're slaughtered, their bodies are teeming with bacteria, Salmonella, Campylobacter, E. coli, and instead of stopping the infection at the source, the system dunks the meat in chlorine and sends it to your plate. Fast food chicken nuggets, spicy chicken sandwiches, crispy strips. It doesn't matter how good they taste. If they came from these chains, they likely came from a chlorine vat, the same chemical used in swimming pools, now sprayed onto meat and served with fries. But here's the part that really makes your stomach turn. Europe banned this practice years ago. So have many other countries. But in America, it's business as usual. Why? Because it's cheaper, faster, easier, and the government says it's generally recognized as safe. Generally. That word has covered up more crimes against public health than we'll ever know. And while the chlorine may kill some bacteria, it doesn't remove the underlying sickness. Recent animal studies suggest trace residues from this treatment may inflame the gut lining, damage cells, and disrupt the endocrine system. Long-term effects? Unknown. Because no one's testing for them. No warnings. No labels. Just battered and deep-fried deception. Parents order this stuff for their toddlers. College students live on it. And all the while, the chains rake in billions, washing their hands of accountability, just like they wash their chickens in bleach. Still think fried chicken is comfort food? Next up, we expose the meat manipulation. Scandal happening in buffet lines across America, and it's enough to make you skip dinner entirely. Let's talk about the rotting meat rotation. The buffet looks endless. Steam rising, trays full, the illusion of abundance. But behind those glowing warmers lies a dirty little secret. That meat may have already been served. Yesterday, buffet chains. Run on margins so tight, they've turned food safety into a gamble. The trick? Meat rotation. What doesn't get eaten one day isn't thrown out. It's cooled down, stored overnight, and brought back out the next day. Sometimes 2 days later. Maybe more. It gets reseasoned, smothered in sauce, chopped into stir-fry, or baked into casseroles. Anything to mask the smell. Anything to hide the age. But you can't hide bacterial growth. And that's what really thrives in this system. Experts warn that improperly cooled meat becomes a breeding ground for Listeria, Clostridium perfringens, and other invisible killers. Point 1. Buffet visit could mean days of nausea, vomiting, or worse, especially for children, pregnant women, and the elderly. What's more shocking? Some of this meat wasn't fresh to begin with. Low-quality cuts, pumped with saline to look plump, ground meats mixed with soy isolates, textured vegetable protein, and coloring agents to mimic freshness. You think you're eating steak. You're chewing on dyed, injected leftovers. And when the meat finally reaches its limit, when it's too far gone even for reheat tricks, it doesn't always go to waste. Insiders have admitted that some locations grind expired meats into fillings, dump them into chili, soups, or chef specials. That juicy taco meat could be rotting roast beef, repurposed with seasoning. This isn't recycling. It's repackaging rot. The FDA barely watches. Health departments? Understaffed, overrun. Buffet chains play the odds. Serve first, dodge consequences later. After all, by the time symptoms hit, you've already left the building. Imagine feeding this to your family. Imagine trusting a smiling server while they slide a tray of 3-day-old meat under the lamp. This isn't overeating. This is overexposure to pathogens, lies, and corporate shortcuts. But the illusion of freshness gets even darker in places pretending to be healthy. Because next, we're heading into restaurants that wear a wellness badge while serving meat that might be destroying your hormones from the inside out. Low-cost diners. The meat glue secret. That sizzling steak on the diner plate? It might not be a steak at all. In fact, it could be scraps, glued together with a powder so unnatural, so deceptive, it's been banned in several countries. But in the US, it's perfectly legal. And they're serving it to you without saying a word. That it's called transglutaminase. But most people know it as meat glue. A white powder derived from animal blood that binds meat pieces together like industrial cement. Once applied, it turns leftovers and trimmings into something that looks like a whole cut of meat. Filet mignon? Ribeye? Pork loin? Not even close. You're getting the Frankenstein version. Diners love to brag about their grilled-to-order steaks and home-style roasts. But behind that greasy charm is a kitchen trick straight out of a horror movie. No labels. No warning. Just glued meat, cooked and served like the real thing. Why should you care? Because meat glue has been linked to digestive inflammation, immune dysfunction, and even blood clotting issues in sensitive individuals. That it's an enzyme that affects how proteins stick, not just in the meat, but potentially in your body too. And when pieces of meat are glued together, they create new surfaces where bacteria can hide, deep inside the product, where cooking might not reach. The risk of E. coli, salmonella, and listeria goes way up. But hey, at least it's cheap. That's why diners love IT. IT turns scraps into profit. That IT turns garbage into gourmet. And you're just the last step in the assembly line. The deception doesn't stop there. Some diners will sear these fake cuts and drown them in gravy or sauces to hide the glue lines. Others slice them thin for steak sandwiches or cube them into stews. Any way they can to get rid of the evidence before it ends up inside you. The next time your $9.99 steak tastes just a little off, ask yourself, what exactly did they glue together this time? And if you think that's the worst of it, wait until you see what's happening before that meat even reaches the restaurant. Because next, we expose the human cost behind every bite of beef you've ever taken. Restaurant supply chains, abuse behind the beef. You think the meat industry's biggest secret is what's in the meat? Think again. The real horror begins long before that burger hits the grill, in the slaughterhouses, the processing plants, and the hidden labor camps that keep America's restaurant chains fed. Behind every cheap cut of beef is a trail of suffering, not just from the animals, but from the workers who are forced to process them. These aren't just jobs. They're war zones that in many large-scale meat-packing facilities. Workers stand shoulder to shoulder for hours, blades in hand, cutting through carcasses at breakneck speed that no brakes. No safety, no voice, just blood, bone, and the ever-present threat of injury or deportation. Many of these workers are undocumented, desperate, disposable. They're recruited through shady contractors, promised fair wages, then trapped in a system that thrives on fear. If they speak out, they're fired. Or worse, that it's not just exploitation, it's modern-day servitude, and the meat you eat is stained with it. Recent investigations have uncovered reports of child labor, sexual abuse, and intentional injury cover-ups inside these facilities. Some workers were forced to wear diapers because bathroom breaks were denied. Others were punished for slowing down after slicing their own hands open, and all of this is done to keep costs down, so chains can boast about value menus and cheap combos so you can have your burger fast, cheap, and hot, while someone else bleeds behind the scenes. And the corporations, they know that they've been fined. They've been warned, but fines are pocket change compared to profit. The cycle continues, hidden behind corporate logos and smiling service. Every bite you take supports this. Every great deal is built on someone else's suffering. And unless you know where your meat came from, you're part of it, without even knowing. Because this isn't just about health anymore, but it's about humanity. But if you think the betrayal ends there, you're wrong. Because even when you try to make the right choice, even when you walk into a plant-based restaurant thinking you're safe, you're still being played. Breakfast chains, the sausage scandal, there's a quiet kind of trust we place in breakfast. A warm plate, a comforting smell, a moment of calm before the chaos of the day. But behind that morning sausage patty, there's a story that will make you sick. Breakfast chains are loading their sausage links and patties with some of the most vile additives allowed in food production, and they're serving it to pregnant women, children, the elderly, and the sick. That we're talking about BHA, TBHQ, and propyl gallate, preservatives banned in multiple countries for being potential carcinogens. The US? They're allowed, in trace amounts, of course. But here's what they don't tell you. Those traces build up, especially when you're eating sausage every morning. And it gets worse that what's really in those sausages. Often it's a disgusting blend of organ paste, bone particles, fatty trimmings, and meat that wouldn't be sold in any respectable butcher shop, that it's ground into a mush, flavored with artificial smoke, injected with brine, and pumped into casings made from chemically treated intestines. And that's what your kids are eating with their pancakes. Some chains have even been caught mixing pork with beef or turkey without telling customers. Others use mechanically separated meat. The stuff left after the real meat is scraped away. It's not food. It's industrial sludge rebranded as breakfast. And because it's the most important meal of the day, it's the most dangerous lie. Parents trust these chains. Schools order from them. Hospitals include them in patient menus. But what they're really feeding people is a ticking time bomb for cancer, gut disorders, and chronic inflammation. The FDA? Silent. The restaurants? Profiting. And you? You're just trying to start your day? This isn't food. It's betrayal in a biscuit.